I am back, guys. Sorry about yesterday's video. It just kind of abruptly ends. Sorry about that. I don't really know what happened. It just my phone, like I said in the comments the video. It just like my phone can only record 31 minutes, so after it just abruptly ends. So sorry about that. But so you probably didn't catch this part where I said this in the end of the video that today's review, it's just kind of a random review, and I probably will do this. Maybe make this a thing where I randomly review something that's not part of a franchise I'm reviewing, just if I'm in the mood. So today we are reviewing random review. We are reviewing Godzilla '98. This movie is a movie that brings a lot of debate. There's a lot of people who hate this movie. There's a lot of people put this in some of the worst movies ever made, and I just disagree with that. I mean, and to be fair, it's partially because I have some nostalgia with this movie. This is one of the earlier movies I watched as a kid, along with like Jurassic Park, and partially this is why I did fall in love with Godzilla in general. So this movie is an interesting case. I think it's a fun monster movie, but I do agree with people. If you didn't call it Godzilla, you just take Godzilla out of the title. I really, if you called this like I don't know, Monster of New York or something, I think because it hits the story beats of a good monster movie, you know. And I'm gonna say it, I'll take this movie over Godzilla 2014. Fuck that movie. At least this movie isn't fucking boring. So, but yeah, so I remember watching this movie as a 2 year old, and I was 2 years old when this came out, and I had like a lot of the toy or some of the toys, and this movie was marketed everywhere. This is a movie that, I mean, the first trailer, I remember the teaser apparently came out during, I forgot, I think it's Men in Black, where like the marketing, I mean, and you can tell it was that first teaser, for example, was kind of a fuck you to Jurassic Park. I mean, you have Godzilla's. I'm just and for intent for just for people's sake, I'm gonna call it Zilla. I know some people still try to call it Godzilla, whatever. I'm just gonna for just to not. I don't care. I'll just call him Zilla. So Zilla's foot like stomps through a museum and basically stomps on a T Rex skeleton, which and like the whole marketing was size does matter. And I remember the toys. You had Taco Bell commercials, Doritos commercials, a Kodak commercial. This movie was marketed everywhere, and that's why a lot of people probably partially didn't like it. There was just a lot of hype around this movie. The merch was almost like Jurassic Park in the sense that you go to a Toys R Us, you would see it everywhere. I mean, even the coloring is this green Godzilla logo with the eye. Like they just this movie was probably one of the greatest, especially in the '90s. I would say it. I'm gonna say it, even if you don't necessarily like the movie. One of the greatest marketing things for a movie ever. You know, but now I rewatched it like a few weeks ago, and I like this movie. It still holds up to me. Yeah, there's some goofy stuff in there, and I saw somebody kind of call it if Friend Jurassic Park meets Friends because there are some parts that will remind people of Jurassic Park, especially like the Baby Zilla stuff. Um, but and then some of the characters are very like friends. Like even like there's a part where the group, not necessarily the whole group, but they're like at a fucking diner, which could be like the central perk basically of Friends. So I kind of agree with that, but I still love this movie. Like I said, it's gonna be a positive review, but there will be some criticisms. So I guess so. The film opens up where we see a military site on French Polynesia, and they do an atomic bomb. And this opening's really cool. I'm underrated. This movie has a really good soundtrack, like the actual film score. Because yeah, the soundtrack is very much of in the vein of '90s films that just have a bunch of artists on there doing tie-in stuff for the movie. Like you had Puff Daddy, you had even Rage Against the Machine. I think who else did the album? There was like a lot of people did it. The Wallflowers, like you had a lot of like marketing for this movie. So we see them basically. I guess in a way, this is kind of Godzilla's origin. And I'm actually not gonna lie, the music in the actual score is really good. I don't remember who actually scored this movie, but they did a really good job. I actually think this film is a really good score. So we see that, and then the sequence ends with like an egg. Lightning strikes through, basically implying it hatched. Then we see a Japanese fishing vessel, and you see that one dude who's usually like the Asian guy henchman in a lot of movies. Like he was in Lethal Weapon. I gotta look up the dude's name. Sorry, I'm just gonna look up something really quick because he's a good actor. Um, Not Lethal Weapon, Die Hard. I'm stupid. He's in Die Hard. He's the bad guy. I'm gonna look it up really quick. Just alive. Sorry about that. Because I don't like just saying this dude. I don't like doing that. Um, Sorry about that. You know what? I'll find it later. I don't want to like do this like live. Oh, I found it now. Ali Al Leong. Yeah, he's in this movie and he's in a lot of movies. Like he's usually like the bad guy in a lot of movies. That's kind of what he's known for, is just being a bad guy in a lot of movies. But yeah, he's one of the people in the vessel. So Zilla attacks the vessel. Really good sequence. Just like his claws go through and then like the tail whips the thing. So then we're next introduced to Nick Totopoulos, who I'll admit, Matthew Broderick is like the only thing that's kind of out of character. Like he shouldn't have been the lead. I will say that. Oh, I guess juxtapose, you have one Frenchman questioning the only survival of it, who said you have this kind of really cool scene of Jean Reno, who from The Professional. Realistically, he should have probably been the lead of this movie because basically his whole thing is he's trying to basically cover up what the, because basically the French basically created Godzilla or created Zilla in this universe. So that's basically what is implied. So he basically questions. He like lights a lighter in front of his face and he's like, "What did you see, old man?" And then he says, "Gojira, Gojira." Really good scene. Like, I will say this: I think there's a lot of underrated sequences in this movie. So now we're introduced to Nico Totopoulos, or Nick Totopoulos, and that's gonna be the joke of the movie. Everyone gets his name wrong, and he's just like, "It's Totopoulos." That's like very '90s. He's looking into the Chernobyl explosion, which causes the effect on radiation on earthworms that grew like big, but then he gets basically escorted by the military, telling him that you've been reassigned. And then basically they travel to I think it's Panama, where he meets up with uh God damn it, I'm trying to find his name because he's like the general of the movie. Oh, Hicks. So Hicks, we meet Hicks, played by Kevin Dunn. You all know him. He's the dad from the Bayformers movies, and I think he was in Small Soldiers. But yeah, he's so they find the ship with the claws on it, but there's also a sequence where Nick's standing in a big footprint. There's a lot of good shots in the movie. Then we meet Elise Chapman, who is also in the animated series, which I will also. That'll be another random review probably next week where I review the animated series, but we'll be forward to that. So we meet Elise Chapman and her sidekick, Dr. Craven, who is he's kind of he has a little bit of a joke in this movie where he like sneezes. But he's another one who comes back in the animated series. So they tell him about what's going on. Then they go to Jamaica, where we see the vessel that's actually destroyed, and we see there's a little discussion between uh Philippe, who now we Philippe played by Jean Reno, and Kevin Dunn. He says he's an insurance agent, and then there's another sequence of where Zilla attacks a boating thing in the eastern seaboard. This is a good little sequence where he like drags three boats down. The score's really good. Um, so yeah, he drags three boards down. Now we're on a military aircraft where basically the topless theorizes that this isn't a dinosaur. That this is like um, that he's basically saying that this is a created by radiation, and so good little sequence there. Now we're back in New York. This is where we meet Audrey. Okay, she's like one of the element I would kind of cut out from the movie. If you, she's Nick's ex girlfriend in the movie. She's trying to be a reporter. We also see her friend. Hold on, I'll look it up again. Lucy. Yeah, Lucy. We meet her and her friend Lucy, and she's trying to become a reporter. She wants to become famous in a reporter, and we meet Charles Kaman, played by Harry Shearer, who's there's a lot of Simpsons actors in this movie. I mean, Hank Azaria. You have a cameo from Nancy Cartwright in a scene. So like this is almost like a Simpsons like um, crossover. But yeah, he basically says he can help her, but she basically has to go on a date with him. So almost like Me Too before Me Too was a thing. So that happens. Then then basically Zilla starts attacking New York, where there's a scene of this old man trying to fish, and while he's fishing, something like drags his thing because he something gets a hold of something. They think it's a fish, and then the fucking thing gets dragged out of his hands, and then this big then Zilla starts attacking New York, swimming, destroying the pier. Really good scene. Actually, I love this scene. This is where Zilla arrives in New York, destroys that, starts attacking New York, attacks like a fishing truck, and then basically starts causing destruction. Then we meet Mayor Ebert, who you could tell it's a knock on a Siskel and Ebert, because I think they did not like Siskel and Ebert did not like Independence Day, because this is directed by um, Roland Emmerich, who directed Independence Day, which that's still his best movie. But I have fun with this one. This is better than some of his later ones. Um, so he starts attacking New York, and we have a cool little cameo from Nancy Cartwright where she's like looking outside the window and Zilla's like walking past. So another thing, originally this movie was pitched because there was a script out there that where it's a more traditional Godzilla movie. Like he even looked more traditional, and it was like in '94. And but Roland Emmerich didn't want to do it. It's out there, but So the creature starts attacking New York. So Zilla then Nick to topple it while this is happening. Hank Azaria, Animal. They're in like the diner. This is the part I was telling you about. That's almost like Friends because it's like very like Central Perk. So Zilla attacks. Hank sees it, so he decides to take because he's a cameraman. So he gets his camera and films it, and he almost gets squashed, and then Zilla kind of walks off, and so then there's a sequence where they said, or and then so before almost getting squashed, Nick was able to capture. And that's the one thing I really do like in this movie. The first hour, they try to like hide what he looks like. Like besides, like you get some quick shots, like when he bites the fishing truck, when he passes by the window, but it's a really quick glance at his face, and when Animal filmed it. So So that happens, and then you have a sequence of the military basically. Nick's plan is to lure the creature out because he realizes this thing's attracted to fish. So we have a sequence of them setting that up. Then, um, this is where the sequence we actually, so Nick uncovers the, so now we jump a little bit forward now. Nick uncovers, a sewer to lure the creature out, and the creature comes out. And this is actually where we get to see like our first really good look at it. I do love the design. Even as a kid, I always loved the design. So Zilla, it seems like it has some kind of connection to Nick, but then it walks towards the fish, starts eating. Then Hicks says fire at will, so they start firing at it. Zilla evades, and I think this is another part that people do not like. They make Zilla almost like an animal. They don't like that. They want Godzilla to be like a monster, where he fights monsters and is a monster. They don't treat him like an animal. Like they are almost treating it like an animal. And definitely the reason it's bipedal, you could tell the Jurassic Park influence. I love this movie, but you can't ignore it. Like, and when we get to the Baby Zilla stuff, it's like evident. Because like that's why I think he's bipedal. Because they're like, okay, let's make him look more like a T Rex instead of like, you know, this standing upright monster. So you have a sequence where he's evading the military. Helicopters start chasing it. And you have this sequence where he's running through buildings. It's a good little sequence, but you could tell they reused a lot of the building shots. But so Zilla ends up destroying the three helicopters. Has a final roar. I do like the roar effects. And there's even a funny little sequence where these dudes are basically looting like an electronics store and Zilla runs by. This is when he's being chased by the military. So Zilla roars one final time, and this is basically where we don't see him for like another 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. It's a little bit. This movie isn't too long though. That's another good thing about this one. The film has a really good pace. It's not boring. It doesn't, you don't get to a point where like, okay, can we move on? It gets to the action fairly quick, like within like the first 5 minutes. So Nick meets up with Audrey again. Finally, Audrey basically lies and says she's a reporter. This scene does kind of piss me off because he takes her to a military tent. There are some questions like how was he able to get her in there, but whatever. And this is where it's revealed that it's pregnant. Um, and while Nick goes off to look something up, Audrey takes the tape. Ugh, I hate this part of the movie. So basically, she takes the tape. She also during the movie she takes like Cayman's like pass. So and she makes it a fake one with her face on it, and she takes the tape to the media, and she basically wants to use it to further her career. She is not a likable character. And while this is happening, Nick has a meeting with the military, and this is where he basically tells them that no, this thing is pregnant. And also, while this is happening, you have Jean Reno and his men kind of watching over in the background. I really do wish she should have been the main character. Nick could have been like a secondary, I don't think Nick is horrible. Don't get me wrong. I like Matthew Broderick. He was great in Ferris Bueller Day Off, but I think he's kind of wooden in this. Even compared to him in like Godzilla the series, which I will review next week. He's a lot. I feel like Nick's a little bit better in that. In the movie, he's just kind of. He should not have been the lead, in my opinion. He could have been like a secondary lead, but the stuff with Philip and with Philippe, he should have been the main guy. But that's just me. So Nick sets up a meeting, and basically Philippe has been hearing stuff in the background. I do like his little background. He's like in the background learning things. So they keep a little bit of his mystery until this point of the movie, where while Nick is telling the military about what happened, with the creature being pregnant, Audrey's report comes out, and this is where they dub it Godzilla. And after this, he's basically removed, and he's forced to leave. And you have a scene between him and Elise. Elise and him, realistically, Elise should have been the love interest. It never, honestly, I didn't mind Audrey when I usually watch this movie, but rewatching it, the more I rewatch it, I'm like, she's kind of annoying. So she basically costs Nick his job. She tries to talk to him, but and also no. The other thing you're gonna notice in this movie, you don't really. There's no real day scenes. Like, and if it is, it's like cloudy, or it's raining. It's raining a lot in this movie, but it's New York, so. So Audrey tries to talk to him, but Nick says like have a good life basically. So he gets in, but it turns out an animal follows him. And while this is happening, this is where it's revealed Philippe says he wants him to help. He wants Nick to help him, and that he has this whole operation that they're gonna go try to destroy the nest. And so Animal hears overhearing this, goes to back to his house, and a lot of the characters, like I said, not really Nick. The stuff when it gets to like the Audrey stuff, it does feel very like Rachel Ross almost in Friends. Like I forgot who said it, but I saw somebody basically say this movie is if Jurassic Park met Friends, and it kind of is, especially when like Animal feels like either he feels like Ross, and then you got Lucy, who's just like his bitchy girlfriend. It's just yeah. It doesn't bother me, but it's Friends was popular at the time, and that's probably what they based it off of. So so Animal basically convinces Audrey to come with them to help Nick. Basically, that if you could film this nest happen, you could kind of help him. So that happens. They go underground near Zilla's lair. Meanwhile, the military basically have their own second attempt to kill the creature. Like they basically did what they did first time, but with more firepower from the military. So while that happens, Zilla resurfaces, um, and Zilla proceeds to eat the fish. Or Zilla, I think, realizes it's a trap, roars, runs off, gets chased by helicopters. Zilla jumps back in the water, and then this is where they have a submarine sequence. I do kind of like the sequence in the movie a little bit. Zilla was able to destroy one of them. It does. I like that they kind of show that this creature has intelligence, but I think some people just don't like that Zilla's basically running from the military the whole time. But it doesn't fully bother me. I look at it like this. I feel like maybe Roland Emmerich wanted to do if make Zilla or Godzilla. I'll just say Godzilla in this sense, right here. That this movie, I think Roland Emmerich kind of like what Rob Zombie did with Halloween. He wanted to make it a bit more realistic. That's probably why they didn't make him ridiculously huge. Like, because the actual Godzilla, especially the legendary version, is like, isn't it like 400 feet tall? I think with this one, he's like, let's make it like 200, not ridiculously huge. Big enough, but not too big. And he made it more like a creature. And yeah, he doesn't have atomic breath. Like what he does is he has like this super breath which sparks, and that's I guess his version of atomic breath. I will once I'm gonna go through the movie, but then I will talk about like how they could have. There's two things they really could have fixed. Hold on. See something. Oh shit! It's 5 minutes in. Okay. Um. So Zilla, the military thinks they took out Zilla when the submarine missiles were able to take it out. And you see it like kind of coming out of the smoke. Back at the I guess is now we're in Madison Square Garden. Um, Nick and Philippe's strike team. You have Audrey and Victor Pilati inside Madison Square Garden. This is where you see the eggs. And this is where I'll admit, this is the part of the film I think they should have cut out. So the eggs hatch, and we see the baby Zillas. They proceed to start chasing everybody, and you have a lot of sequences where most of Nick Philippe's team gets killed. Some you don't. This film is PG-13, so you know there's not a lot of blood, like so you don't really see the baby Zillas fully maul the people. So they do that, and Nick and Philippe find Audrey and Animal, and they're able to go to the broadcast room, and they start broadcasting, and this is where Audrey basically reports on, and they show the eggs to the world, and now basically now they got to get out in the next like I think 6 minutes or something because the airstrike's basically gonna happen. I don't like that Audrey almost doesn't really learn a lesson. She just gets back with Nick. I guess this scene is, well, she helps him reveal the eggs, but it's just, she still kind of fucked him over, though. But whatever. So they're able to escape. You have a kind of a fun sequence where they run out through like a bunch of baby Zillas. MSG gets blown up. Everything seems fine. Nick and Audrey have their kiss and whatever. Then Zilla shows up again and starts chasing him, realizing that, you know, they killed their babies. Or his babies. So Zilla, you have a kind of a fun taxi scene where he chases him in a taxi. And they manage to throw. There's O'Neill, who's like a random soldier you see throughout the movie. I don't really see why they focused on him a little bit. But yeah, they're able to. Nick throws like the taxi number at them so you can contact them. They lure Zilla into a bridge, and then and he tells them to take him to the and I think oh yeah, O'Neill tells them to take Zilla to the Brooklyn Bridge. So they go to the Brooklyn Bridge. Zilla gets trapped, and basically the military kills him in the end. And the movie ends with a egg hatching, which you could tell this was supposed to set up a sequel. There's actually a script out there for a Godzilla 2 where it is a little bit more like a traditional Godzilla movie. You could tell they took elements from the animated series, like he's fighting monsters. You have that like connection with Nick. Yeah, I love this movie. But the two things I would take out: the baby Zillas, I don't think were necessary. That was way too on the nose of it being too much like Jurassic Park. Like literally, the baby Zillas were jumping on people like raptors. The only thing they didn't use was Velociraptor sound effects, but it practically was them just being raptors. And then him dying in the end. I think the whole way he died was dumb. Realistically, that whole bridge should have just broke apart. I don't buy that some fucking cables would hold him. I feel like he would have been able to break out of that shit. What they should have done, honestly, should have just had another monster. I don't necessarily know what kind of monster, but they should have just had another monster. Maybe even if they introduced it halfway through the film, that's what it should have been. And then it should have just been Zilla versus that monster. You actually give him atomic breath. Maybe you just didn't show it for a little bit, but he finally shows it. He kills the monster, and then you end the movie because they play this song "We Can Be Heroes." I think that would have been a good way, almost similar to what they did with the 2014 movie where Godzilla walks into the water. Something like that should have happened. There should have been a monster fight. I will agree with people on that. But I also do think if you just take Godzilla out of the title, it's a fun monster movie. I had fun with this movie. Unlike Godzilla 2014, which was a giant bore, I will eventually rant on that movie when I get to it. I can't stand that movie. But this one, I think, like I said, if you just take the Baby Zilla element out of it, because I was too on the nose on it being like Jurassic Park. Even like the way Zilla was bipedal and all that, people were already saying that's Jurassic Parky. Like you could tell it was almost like a T Rex. That part doesn't bother me. I think if it was just Zilla, because I'm gonna say the baby Zilla, some of the effects on them did not look great. They look fine if they're just standing there, but when they're actually moving, oh my god, it looks kind of wonky. But like the Zilla effects itself were great. I think the special effects for the most part are good in this movie. Zilla's arrival in New York is amazing. I love the whole sequence where he destroys the pier. The fear on that old man's face when the thing snatches his fucking fishing reel is like, it's believable. And I'm sorry, the actual score of the movie is really good, especially the intro. Like I said, all around, I have fun with this movie. Shouldn't have called it Godzilla, or if you're gonna do it, you should have had a more traditional Godzilla ending. He fights another monster, even if the monster is introduced like halfway through and there's no really any